In 2021 of the last international wars broke out, and on CBIS's map we reported on it. Today, almost 3 years later, the situation between Armenia and Azerbaijan is not exactly the best. Skirmishes on the border are the order of the day, and the supposed Russian peace missions are losing their influence more and more. Therefore, a third Nagorno-Karabakh war is not only not ruled out, but some consider it imminent. Why can't both countries find peace? Could this be the start of a world war in the Middle East? Are you interested? Go ahead, then stay until the end of... To start, it would be good for us to put things in context, especially if you're not very clear on this geopolitical conflict. Azerbaijan and Armenia are two neighboring former Soviet republics, but with many differences between them. The Armenians are an ancient people who have lived in the Caucasus since antiquity and are characterized as the first state to officially adopt Christianity as a religion during the 4th century AD. The Azerbaijanis, on the other hand, are a Turkic Muslim people closely related to the Turks, so they would have arrived in the region around the 10th century AD. Both territories became part of the Russian Empire in the 19th century, and a decisive moment occurs during World War I. In it, the declining Ottoman Empire had sovereignty over what is known as Western Armenia, this region that is now part of Turkey. In it, the bloody Armenian genocide was committed, in which about 2 million Armenians, and as many Greeks and Assyrians, also Christians, were killed in an attempt at ethnic and religious homogenization. This was the precursor to the Turkish War of Independence, in which the Armenians gave up their thwarted plan to have their own state in Western Armenia. Simultaneously, the Russian Civil War was being fought, in which the Bolsheviks managed to occupy the territories of present-day Armenia and Azerbaijan. The Soviet Socialist Republics of Armenia and Azerbaijan were subsequently created, becoming part of the Soviet Union. In other words, the Russians are the ones who created the borders of the current countries. And here it's time to mention the territory that is the focus of this video, Nagorno or Upper Karabakh, which is a mountainous region of about 4,400 square kilometers with a majority Armenian population, considered by Armenians as a historical province. Due to the complex demographic situation intertwined with geography, the Soviets decided to give it the status of an autonomous oblast embedded within the Azerbaijan Soviet Socialist Republic, meaning it enjoyed some autonomy, but always within the Azerbaijani jurisdiction, since both peoples were under the same superstate. The decades passed without major problem. Everything would change with the fall of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics in 1991. Faced with the imminent independence of the Soviet republics in Nagorno-Karabakh, with an Armenian majority, a referendum is held for independence from Azerbaijan, with a view to unifying with Armenia. After all, Armenians associate Azerbaijanis with Turks as they are extremely similar peoples, so they were wary of them based on their historical memory, where the bloody genocide of 1915 is found. Thus, the Republic of Arzak is proclaimed based on the self-determination of peoples, which is not recognized by either the international community or Azerbaijan, who demanded that the principle of uti possidetis juris be complied with, therefore claiming the entire territory of the former Azerbaijan Soviet Socialist Republic. Thus, the First Nagorno-Karabakh War breaks out, where the victory is taken by the Armenians, who also occupy a corridor that connects it with Arzak. Almost 3 decades later, and after Azerbaijan multiplied its gross domestic product to the point of tripling that of Armenia, a second Nagorno-Karabakh war breaks out, in which this time the Azerbaijanis take the victory and occupy much of the territory of Arzak. Within the peace agreements mediated by Vladimir Putin, it was established that Russian peacekeeping forces would remain on the border for 5 years, and that a humanitarian corridor, Lakin, also monitored by Russia for the connection between Armenia and Arsan, would be established. And this is where we have to answer the question of the video. Why could the war break out again at any moment? Or at least, why won't we find a definitive peace in the short and medium term? Beyond the already mentioned skirmishes on the border that have been extremely frequent, The answer lies in the already mentioned Chin Corridor. It turns out that since December 2022, Azerbaijani forces have blocked this corridor, which is the only connection between Armenia and Arzak. Due to its enclave position and its enmity with Azerbaijan that completely surrounds it, Arzak is unable to supply itself by any other means than Armenia. In these 7 months of blockade, the population is already beginning to feel the effects of an imminent famine and a complete lack of supplies. Likewise, they are deprived of medical care, water shortage, electricity and gas, while entire families are separated. The Azerbaijani government of Ilham Aliyev, for its part, maintains that the blockade is not for military purposes, but is about environmental protests. Be that as it may, these actions violate the 2020 ceasefire agreements, and those who really suffer the consequences are the ordinary citizens of Artsakh, who are experiencing an unprecedented blockade. From everything that has been said so far, it is clear that this conflict is not only territorial, but also has a broad ethnic and nationalist component. The Armenians are an ancient people who have lived in these lands, and who have in their historical memory a series of invasions and aggressions, among which the genocide by the Turks stands out, who, by the way, massively support Azerbaijan. So it is evident that the Republic of Armenia will not abandon its compatriots from Arzak. That is, maintaining sovereignty over Arzak is the goal of Armenia. And Azerbaijan's turn is to analyze the map again. And I spoil you that the goal of the Azerbaijanis is another reason why disputes will continue for a long time. This is the Azerbaijani exclave of Nakhchivan, which shares a small border with its sister Turkey. The separation between Nakhchivan and the rest of Azerbaijan is due to the Armenian province of Shunik. It is evident that Azerbaijan's goal is not only to fully annex Nagorno-Karabakh, which they seek through the slow and silent killing of Armenians through blockade, but also to occupy Shunik in order to achieve territorial continuity towards Nakhchivan and consequently towards Turkey. This would block Armenia's border with Iran, an enemy of Azerbaijan that could get involved. And since we're talking about external agents, it's time to talk about how a small world war could break out in the Middle East. It turns out that relations between Iran and Azerbaijan are going from bad to worse, even though both are countries with a Shiite Islamic confession. The reason is that in Iran, there are about 20 million ethnic Azeris, the second minority in the country, after the Persians themselves, and even double the Azerbaijanis, who live in the same Republic of Azerbaijan. According to Tehran, over the past few years the Baku government has incited the Azeris of Iran to rebel against the Ayatollah for allegedly being marginalized. For this reason, Iran has shown its political support to Armenia, because ultimately it does not suit an empowered Azerbaijan that has a land border with Turkey. So it would not be unreasonable to think that it will intervene in the Third Nagorno-Karabakh War. Analyzing other countries in the region, Bashar al-Assad's Syria is a close ally of Iran, so it could also support Armenia. On the other hand, the Syrian National Army opposing the government is supported by Turkey, and in fact, Syrian mercenaries participated in the 2020 war in favor of Azerbaijan. The Kurds are another ethnic minority enemy of Turkey, so they could join the Armenians in having a common enemy. And of course, we can't continue the video without mentioning Mother Russia. During the 2020 war, she provided military support to Armenia. In addition to this, both countries are members of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, a military alliance that also includes Kazakhstan, Belarus, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. That is, if Azerbaijan intrudes into internationally recognized territory as Armenia, as is the case with Zunag, these countries could intervene in favor of Yerevan. Another important player in the region that we should mention is Israel. It turns out that during the 2020 war, it was one of the main suppliers of weapons to Azerbaijan. Likewise, its fierce rivalry with Iran could lead both powers to use the war between Armenia and Azerbaijan as a proxy conflict, to which other factions such as Lebanon's Hezbollah would also join. Therefore, the forgotten region of the Caucasus could be the cause of an unprecedented domino effect. It's important to note that we have set aside other important players whose positions may not be so clear yet, but if the war escalates and regional powers begin to intervene, they will eventually align with one side or the other. Therefore, the not-so-well-known Nagorno-Karabakh conflict definitely deserves greater visibility. Do you think the imminent Third Artsakh War could generate a domino effect? What other countries in the region do you think will take a side in this conflict? As a Cebus Map subscriber, remember you get a big discount with CyberGhost Virtual Private Network enabling safer browsing and an improved catalog of Disney Plus and 40 other streaming platforms. I'll leave the link in the description and first comment. Don't forget to leave your comment and subscribe to the channel. Also, I leave in the description my social networks, and in case you want to see the new videos in pre-release and have a greater interaction with me, your donations on Patreon, unamanito.net, or channel members are welcome. See you next time. Thank you.